I have owned this Porsche Boxster 987 for just over 2 years. In that time, I've done over 10,000 miles, and that's year-round driving. Believe me, I do not baby this car. In this video, I'm going to speak of the parts of the car that I had problems with, that wore out or that literally broke, and how much they cost me to repair or replace. For all the Porsche bits that broke, we're going to go in order from the most affordable to the most expensive repairs. I have it tuned to redline at 7200 RPM, and it hits 102 kilometers per hour in second gear. That's 62 miles per hour. I've also done 18 track or track training days, and even did one event, wheel-to-wheel racing, mostly because I used to race MX-5 and wanted to relive that experience, but only once in the Boxster. I drive it hard to redline on the roads and the highways too. Luckily here, noise and speed are not particularly regulated. Actually, here's a funny story about that. After a routine checkpoint near the end of a 600 kilometer weekend trip, one of the 4 officers who were admiring my 08S said, "Dale duro," which in Spanish means go hard, give it hell, pound it. What they wanted was for me to exit the checkpoint flat out. So I confirmed his request, and then I opened the valves, put the S in first gear, and did just that. I could see the 4 of them in my rear view mirror enjoying the sound and the view, but then I noticed on the other side of the highway there was another checkpoint, which I passed doing almost 170 kilometers an hour. So let's get started with the countdown to the top 10 fails and repairs on this Boxster S. Number 1. I just love how the dash looks on these cars, and on the S model the background is white. So cool. And as you can see, there's a red light exclamation mark on the dash, which just means there's something to check. And as you will see in problem number 3, this is related to the installation of a flasher on my topside brake light. Number 2, soft top piping. This piping is on the very edge of the top on each side, and it's supposed to land just inside the side window surrounds when you put the top up. But this is a common issue. The piping is kept taut by a simple strip of elastic. As is normal after a few years, this strip of elastic will lose its stretchiness, and the piping ends up on the outside of the window surround. There are many videos here on YouTube to figure out how to fix this. It looks bad and also creates a lot of wind noise at higher speeds when the top is up. It's actually quite a simple fix, and it can be done by just tying a knot in the elastic to make it taut again. What I did was to replace both elastic strips. The cost of this, $4 for parts and about an hour to install it at home. Number 3, brake light bulb. I know it's not really a big fail, but the Boxster blew the rear driver's side brake light after 36,000. Also, the reflective material on the inside was starting to peel a little. Since I was in there, I decided to replace the entire brake light assembly and to upgrade them to a more modern look. As you saw earlier, the VIP MotoZ 987 LED taillights look amazing, and they're even better when drive lights are combined with the brake lights. Maybe an expensive fix for one bulb, but I think it looks great. The cost of this was $280, and the install time about 30 minutes. Number 4. Again, another thing that surprised me, the transmission mount gave up their stiffness only after 32,000 miles. There were no symptoms of this, and we only discovered it when we were installing the Top Gear race headers, and my mechanic touched it and told me it was feeling pretty loose. I instantly got a bit worried about this repair and how much it was going to cost me, not only in parts but in labor. But thanks to my Indy, with $300 from Pelican Parts and about 2.5 hours to get all 3 of them installed, we were off and rolling again. Number 5. Ever since I purchased the Boxster, it had a slight smoke on startup, but it also has very little oil use. This can be caused by several things: the weight of the oil used, the air oil separator that is dying, and also by something called bore scoring, which we're all scared of. I decided first to replace the AOS, the air oil separator that prevents the air and oil mixing. And again, this repair got me a bit worried because it was the first time venturing into the engine compartment, which takes me 21 minutes exactly. Many people complain about how inaccessible the motor is on the Boxster, but I kind of like it because it makes me feel confident that it's so good it does not need to be a HUD lift away. With $130 for the AOS and 2 hours for the install, she has not smoked once since. I'm going to group number 6 through 8 together because they were all in the same area. Again, another surprising failure. Maybe it's the roads here in Guatemala, but I had an annoying tack, tack, tack noise coming from the front lower area when going over cobblestones or slightly rough streets. I don't know about you, but I hate rattles and squeaks. After much research and frustration, I realized to solve would mean replacing both lower control arms. Again, while we were in there, we also put in new tie rod ends, the inner and outer, and the vertical sway stabilizers, and all of this solved the noise. And let me see, 10,000 miles later, still not back. And as we were in the neighborhood, we noticed that the bump stops on the front were completely disintegrated. I mean, worn down to knobs. Come on, Porsche. So we took care of them as part of this fix. The entire cost on this, control arms, tie rod ends, and stabilizers, and the bump stops was $400. It took 5 hours for my trusty independent mechanic right here in my home garage. Number 9, fuel pump failure. This one was my fault. So on the return trip from an out-of-country beach trip, we had just crossed the border between El Salvador and Guatemala, and I noticed that my gas was really low. I know the road well and realized that the next gas station available was going to put me close to empty, but I didn't really have a choice. We made it and filled up, but, and there's a big but, after about another 30 miles, she started stuttering on acceleration. I instantly thought of bad gas and tried to go that route for a fix. But long story short, it ended up that somehow I'd ruined the fuel pump by letting the gas get so low. It looks complicated, but it's not actually. The fuel pump is located underneath the battery, and it was $160 for the entire fuel pump and float, $60 before that for an official dealer diagnosis just to make sure it was a fuel pump, and my Indy dropped it in about an hour and a half. Number 10, and this is the most expensive fail. So one day pulling out of a gas station at the start of a weekend road trip, which I never ended up going on, I saw this. The top would not go more than halfway down. Man, I was disappointed. So after a couple of tries to get it down, I decided it would be better to turn around and return home with the top fully up. I did not know at the time that you can pop off the plastic guides that connect the top to the motor arms and just operate the top manually. This was something I discovered in my research to diagnose this issue. And the issue was that the convertible top transmission on the driver's side had just died. This was not a fix I was going to attempt myself or with my Indy, because there was no way I would have been able to realign the clamshell correctly. So it was a dealership fix. Luckily, they let me supply the part, which I got from LA Dismantlers, and they did the install and the complicated alignment. The cost of this, $1,000 for the used motor and the dealership labor. So the question is, as is the question that I posed at the end of my MX-5 Boxster video, would I buy one again? Meaning, would I buy a Boxster S again? The answer is a resounding yes, but I think I would upgrade. I would go to a 981S, or God's willing, I would go for the Carrera 4 Cabriolet. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video. There are some more videos on either side of the screens here from existing videos on my channel. Please subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed watching.